Hello, my writer friends. Welcome back to Write with Intent. I'm Mindee Arnett, science fiction and fantasy author, bringing to you all the tips and tools of the trade that I've learned on my publishing journey to help you along with yours. Today on the vlog, we're going to be talking about how to go from page 1 to the end. All right, so let's get started. So I've said it before on previous vlogs that writing is really hard. It's that whole Stephen King metaphor about crossing the ocean in a bathtub and how difficult that would be. And I probably should come up with my own metaphor that's maybe a little bit more realistic. But for now, we'll just stick to that one. So it's really hard. And not only is it hard, but one of the things that make it hard is that the payoff of writing a novel in particular is very far away. It's very delayed. It's that delayed gratification thing. You know, even if you're super fast, it's going to take a little bit of time to put down 300 or 100,000 words or however long your novel ends up being. Especially if you want that novel to be, you know, decently good by the time you're done and not a big mess. So there's lots of reasons not to write every day. And just full disclosure, before we talk about these things, I want to let you know that I know where you're coming from. Even though I'm done okay in my writing career and I've got a number of published novels, I still work a full-time day job. I have 2 kids of grade school age, which means lots that don't drive yet, which means lots of, you know, time going to soccer practices and, you know, a bunch of other things. I have a husband and I have lots of animals. And I don't mean just the furry, barky kind. I mean the horse kind that require a lot of work and a million other things. So feed me. My point being is that I'm with you. I know exactly where you're coming from. I understand how incredibly hard it is to make yourself write and to get from that beginning of your story to the end. And I've done my whole writing career full time with this same kind of setup. The kids came actually before I started publishing. So when I say I understand, you can truly believe me and maybe, I don't know, send me a coffee or something to help get me through these days because they're challenging.
Now that's fresh mountain-grown coffee from the hills of Colombia.
Anyways, so writing is really hard, and we have a million things every day saying, do me first because it's more important. Do the laundry, pay the taxes, you know, work the day job, which of course you got to do. You know, pick the kid up from school, which of course you got to do. You know, there's a million things saying, hey, I'm more important. Why don't you come spend your energy accomplishing this task? And not only will you accomplish this task, but you get the immediate payoff from accomplishing the task, like the clean house or the dirty laundry put away, whatever. So given all those distractions, my very first suggestion is that you set up a list of priorities in your life. We can go into depth about this maybe on a later vlog, but basically have a list of things that matter to you and that you need to get done in a day, and just kind of order them out so that if you have, you know, a task that has to be done immediately because it involves picking your kid up so they don't think they've been abandoned to school, you know that has to take priority over the writing. So that's one way to help, you know, kind of help you navigate your day to day. But as part of that, it's very important that you give yourself permission to make writing a priority. Like, it does not have to be at the very end of the list. It doesn't have to be the thing you only do once the kids are on bed. It is okay and legitimate and valid to take time out of your day to put in that creative time. So not only is it important because you can, you know, hey, you can make a living at writing. It's a legitimate pursuit. But I also think, at least for me personally, it is a spiritual need. It is required for my mental and physical health that I have this creative outlet. And if that means telling your spouse or your significant other, you know, hey, I'm going to go lock myself in the bedroom for an hour to get some writing done. Can you leave me alone? That's okay.
I swear by my pretty floral bonnet, I will end you.
It also means that if you've got a sink full of dishes, it's okay to just leave them for the next day. It might feel awful in the moment, but trust me, it'll be worth it. So that's the first thing. Give yourself permission to do that. And the second thing that I do to help me get through from the end of the story, from the beginning of the story to the end, is I set goals. Now, I know I can hear you rolling your eyes. I don't want to talk about goals, the whole SMART thing, blah, blah, blah. But let's face it, goals are useful, maybe overdone, but they're useful, especially if you know how to implement them properly into your writing. And the key thing with any writing goal is to make sure that it's reasonable. I find and I can't really speak from what other people do because I don't know that I've asked them about it, but I know for myself that if I set a goal on a day that I know is busy, that if I set that writing goal too high, if I don't make it by the end of the day, I feel lousy. I feel like I've failed. You know, it really does not do anything to help make me feel good or to give me any kind of payoff, to get the words down. So that's the first thing, is to set reasonable goals. Now, for me, a reasonable goal when I'm really busy, which I am right now, and actually through most of 2020 and the craziness of COVID, my writing goals very often were only 500 words. And so how that works is that I would start off, I keep a log in my journal and I write down my start. And let me caveat this. This is only when I'm actually doing an initial draft, a first draft of a story, which given where we are in this vlog series kind of makes sense to assume that maybe you're at the drafting stage. So I write down the number of words that I finished the day before, and then I set down the goal, which again is usually 500 new words, and then I write down the third column, which is actual, which of course once I'm done with the day or I start the next day, that's when I write down whether or not I made it or not. And if I hit my goal, I actually give myself a little star or smiley face or something to kind of say, hey, I did it.
You can do it!
So right now, during that busy time, my goal was 500 words, which is really, really very easy. When I'm in a better groove, when I'm further along in the story and I have to spend less time answering questions about world building and naming characters, I will up that goal to 1,000 words a day. Never in my writing career have I made that goal any higher, except for one time when I was super behind on the third book in my Nightmare Fair series, which was delayed significantly, and it was awful, and I'm sorry, and I hope it never happens again. But if you do a little bit of writing each day, hopefully you don't have to worry about, hitting that deadline and having to write 4,000 or 5,000 words a day. Anyway, so 1,000 words is usually when I'm a little bit further on in the story and not doing as much world building, as much brainstorming as I do in the beginning. That is usually my daily goal, is 1,000. Now, I also set stretch goals. So these are goals that will be a little bit harder for me to obtain, but still are probably reasonable, and if I get them, they're like a bonus. So usually my stretch goal is something I would set by the week, and when I'm in my groove, I set it around 8,000 to 10,000 words. So you assume that if I write 7 days a week, which does not always happen, that would be 7,000 words. So if I can get 8, that means I've done a little bit better. Yay me, it helps get me forward on the progress. Seeing those stars is motivating, so on and so forth. So that's the number one thing I rely on to get my draft done. And then later on, when I'm revising or editing, I will usually set my goals based around the number of chapters. So I'll say, hey, I want to get through 1 chapter today, revising it, and that's good, and call it good and get myself a start. The other thing that I have done more recently is I've started using the Pomodoro technique. I'm maybe not pronouncing that correctly. I think it's like tomato, but anyways. And you can go and look this up, but basically the idea is you set a time, usually it's I believe they're 25 minutes, where you're going to work on the book, and you're going to focus exclusively on the book. You're going to turn your phone off. You're not going to answer any emails. You're going to shut yourself in for 25 minutes. And then your timer will go off after 25 minutes, and you get a 5-minute break. And during this break, you're supposed to get up and walk around and do something not related to focus work. They say you're not supposed to check your phone, but let's face it, that's usually what I do, is check my email because something important might have happened. But basically, you give yourself a break, and then you come back and you repeat the process again. There are a lot of apps available to do this. You can actually do something fun. I will occasionally use an hourglass like this because, it's pretty. And, although it can be a little distracting, you're like, oh, it's so pretty. I would rather watch this than write my story.
And then, ooh, a sparkly. What? You're wearing a sparkly. Can I? Oh, please. can I get?
But there's all kinds of ways you can implement a timer that might help motivate you to do this. And I find the Pomodoro is very useful. Now, it doesn't always happen. Of course, the phone will ring. It'll be something important. But the more I do it, the better my discipline gets, and the more I am able to focus. And that's really important, especially in our society where we're inundated with beeps and alerts and look at me and lots of things fighting for our attention. So the last thing I want to say, though, when we're talking about these word goals in particular, and for those of you that have ever done NaNoWriMo, which I will admit I have never done for reasons we can discuss later, I do know that's a trap that I have fallen into in the past and is very easy to fall into is what I call just putting in filler words. And this is kind of harkens back to those days I mentioned earlier when my first novel where I just kind of just wrote whatever and it didn't really make decisions and I wasn't intentful about anything. I would just simply be in a hurry and know that I wanted to hit my goal, and hitting the goal was more important than what I was actually writing, and therefore I would just write stuff. And that, of course, was a disaster. It is a disaster even when it happens to me now. It's never a good thing to be like, I'm just going to write some description so that I can hit my 500-word goal today. That is bad, and it's very dangerous. And be careful about getting caught in that trap, because in the end you'll end up with just a pile of filler, pile of stuff that's not story, that's not interesting, and that you might have gotten that little that hormonal kick of I forget what it's called. It's either not adrenaline. My brain is fogging out. You get that endorphin rush or whatever from accomplishing the task. But then, 3 months down the road when you're revising, it was just kind of worthless. So the way to avoid that, similar to things I say all the time, is to make sure that you're writing those words with intent. And for me, the way that I grade whether or not I've done something useful and meaningful and with intent in that writing period is I ask myself how many decisions I made about the story in that session. So, like I've said before, you're constantly making decisions, and let me rephrase that. You should constantly be making decisions that are thought out and intentful and that help move the story forward. So if I've had a writing session where I didn't do any of those things, then those words may not be filler, but I haven't really made true progress on the book. So I will try to make sure the next day when I come in that I've made a very intentful and serious decision, a purposeful decision each day. So that also goes back to those days when you're spending more time, figuring something out because you're stuck and maybe you don't get the word goals that day. As long as you've made a breakthrough, you've made a decision, I'll still give myself a star. That still counts as making it. Because again, the goal here is to not only to have a completed book, but to have a book that you're proud of and that is meaningful and that hopefully you can take out and get published and share with the world and be proud of. So again, the key to that, as the key really to life, is to do it with intent. So write with intent and live with intent, and you're going to be all set. Thanks again for stopping by today, guys. I hope you come back again. Tell your friends. Comment down below if there's future topics you'd like me to cover. And I hope you found this useful. And just have a great day. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.